Hi, I'm Kazem Abdullah. I'm from the library's music division. I also work in the concert office. It just started in July, and I'm very much glad to be here. And I have the pleasure of having the Skride sisters from Riga, Latvia, Baiba Skride on my left, and Lauma Skride, the pianist, on my right. So if you could just give them a nice little warm welcome.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to start, I had the pleasure, as I was doing research on them and their history and the group, I saw a wonderful little report on Deutsche Welle. Deutsche Welle is basically a German-English television station in Germany where they do both reports both in English and in German, and sometimes, and there was a wonderful report on the Skride family. And it really warmed my heart because at one point they had this wonderful report where you guys' mother was playing at the piano and you were watching your mother and you were playing with your mother, and I heard them playing something and it was so dynamic and so kind of, so kind of warm and friendly how their interaction was. And I don't come from a musical family, actually, so like for me it was very interesting to see how a family dynamic in music works. And so one of my first questions is, you guys come from a very sort of dynamic generation. You know, there's so many wonderful Latvian musicians kind of taking over classical music. And I wanted to ask you both, what was it like growing up in Latvia? And what was the music training like there when you were growing up?
Well, I have to say that the musical training in Latvia, especially for children, is amazing because every little town, village in Latvia has a music school. So children can naturally learn music, and it's for free mostly. So everyone can learn music, and it's kind of in Latvian blood also to sing in a choir. So you usually also sing in a choir, and you have music all around you. And it was also in our family because our father was a choir conductor. And mom was pianist, so we always were surrounded by music, and we also had these amazing schools where to go on to get really wonderful education.
So when you guys were deciding which instruments to play, did you ever vacillate between violin and piano or tuba or
I did
some other
a lot.
Okay. What other instruments did you play, Baiba?
Well, Lauma had the problem that our older sister already had chosen the violin. Now she changed to viola, but she chose violin. I chose the violin because of her, because I wanted to do what she does.
Then I wanted, of course, like my older sisters, also play the violin, and then mom said, not the third violin in the house.
Okay.
So I wanted cello, flute, I wanted everything, and then mom said, why don't you try piano? Okay.
Oh, okay. Well,
now I'm very happy.
Well, I can attest she's a marvelous pianist. I was listening to some of the rehearsal this afternoon, and I was listening to some of the Enescu, and you brought out such wonderful colors, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing the concert. And so, does your family still live in Latvia, or do any of you still live in Riga, Latvia, or have you since moved?
No, we don't have any more relatives in Latvia, maybe very far ones, but all of us, we started studying abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first one to leave to Germany, and then Lauma came, and my older sister also, and now we're kind of scattered all over Europe. And the older sister, she lives now in Holland, I think.
Okay.
She was in Sweden for the past 5 years, so it's always, you never know where she is. I'm in Germany, Lauma is now in Germany as well, and our mom is also in Germany by now. And so we all kind of, but not in the same place. So we don't see each other very often, apart of playing with my sister, but at least we're in the same country, almost.
Oh, wonderful. And so you actually, you all might not know, but Baiba won the Queen Elizabeth competition in Belgium in 2001. And you said once in an interview that part of the reason why you did these competitions was to sort of get out of Latvia and to sort of see the world. And so, and you have, of course, done that. You play with the top orchestras, both in the United States and in Germany and in Europe and in Japan. And so, but I wanted to ask you, what was actually your first playing experience in the United States?
Oh, I don't remember. True, but I didn't actually play there. I was just taking lessons. I never played. I went to the Aspen Music Festival.
Oh, you went to the Aspen Music Festival, okay.
Yeah,
so.
my parents were a bit crazy. I was, I think, 13.
Okay.
And for some reason, this wonderful professor, he had heard my tape and he wanted me to come to America, but of course we didn't have the money to buy a plane ticket or anything, so somehow he organized a half scholarship and a plane ticket or whatever, but only for me, of course. And then I remember I had to go through Frankfurt, and I don't know, and I was 13 years old, all alone, and I was sleeping in Frankfurt airport not even in a hotel, of course, nobody had it. So, but I'm so thankful that my parents let me do that, because of course you grow up very fast, and it was an important experience. So I think that was my very first experience in America. But I mean, nowadays, to imagine that how it was growing up, I remember sitting on the couch with all our family, and we were dreaming about how it would be one day to leave Latvia and to go somewhere outside of, we had relatives in America, to go to America. It was something unimaginable.
Yeah.
And nowadays we just, every single week we travel there, travel there, travel there. There's not even a question in your mind that it would not be possible. It's a great, great luck and
gift.
gift.
Oh, well, no, that's true. Yes, it's a big gift. Well, yeah, like, you know, like I think sometimes us being Americans, we take advantage, or we take for granted the fact that we had freedom sort of all these years and could kind of go where we wanted to go and go as we please. And of course, yeah, it wasn't the case being from Latvia. So that's wonderful. So I'm curious. How did you start the group? What was the impetus to start the group? Was it having the Skride sisters, or?
It was actually a little bit accidental, because there's a festival in Schwarzenberg on Hohenems called Schubatiade, and we have been going there for a few years and playing duos and different things. And then the organizer of the festival said, "But why don't you come with different people? Why don't you come as a piano quartet this time? So with whom would you like to play together?" And then it just went back and forth, and somehow we ended up having this group. At the beginning there was a different cellist playing, but it's very interesting to play piano quartet, because there's not so many piano quartets who play it. I mean, trio is very popular.
Yeah, trios
duos,
are very popular.
Even quintets are more popular, but piano quartets are not really that often played on a stage.
No, that's very true. But speaking about there not being so many quartets, part of the reason, I guess, is because there's just not such a there's not so much well-known repertoire, and that's...
Yeah, of course. You cannot compare it to string quartet repertoire or trio repertoire, but there is many really interesting pieces, like, for example, Enescu tonight, which is... I mean, usually you hear piano quartets in maybe a festival where people come together and have a little time to rehearse, but maybe not... they don't know each other that well. And a piece like Enescu, it's so complicated and written in a way that it's not really possible to do in these festivals, so you don't hear that much. So it's one of our great pleasures, and one of the reasons why we keep on doing the quartet is to discover maybe not as well-known pieces, or something really interesting which is completely unknown, or even a new contemporary commissions.
Yeah, well, yes, one thing I saw is that you all recently played, or you did a tour in Australia, and you commissioned an Australian composer to write a piano quartet. So are there any composers in your head that you think, that composer would be the ideal person to write something for the Skride Quartet?
Actually,
wish list.
Brett Dean is writing already. I think probably he started or not.
Yeah, I don't know if he started.
But it's due to be finished in 22. So
we're not the only ones who commissioned it. There is a whole group of quartets who did, but we're one of them. And I really love his music. I love Brett Dean.
No, yeah, he's a very great composer.
And he's a wonderful composer and so honest. And I'm really looking forward to that piece.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, I mean, you're right in that there's not so much repertoire, and that's kind of one of the things that I particularly like about this program, is that, you know, there's 3 different piano quartets, none of which I've never heard live, only through recording. So it should be a very fascinating, sort of a very fascinating concert. Speaking of Enescu, have you had experience with other pieces of his as a pianist or as a violinist, like the sonatas or any of the other chamber works?
We played once the F minor sonata.
Well, I've actually, during my studies, I had a Romanian teacher, my main Professor Munteanu, and of course being a Romanian and having studied a lot of Enescu, I grew up with a lot of information about Enescu, and he was his idol, and everything was the best out of Enescu, of course, and which I actually now, when I play it more, I understand what kind of genius this person was. I mean, he's ended, I think, Vienna Conservatory by 7 and Paris by 10 years old, and I mean, it's absolutely incredible what talent he had, and still he thought of himself more than a composer than a performer. But I mean, he must have been amazing, and you can hear that in every instrument in this quartet, for example, that he knew exactly how to write for instruments. Either it would be piano or it's very difficult, but he knew how to write.
But it's very practical for the hand, and it's exactly, even though there's a lot of notes written, it's possible to make colors out of it. And there are other composers who write a lot of notes, and it's just technically from balance, it's really very difficult to make the mixture. And here, like every instrument, you have the feeling he really knew what he was doing.
No, that's true. Yeah, like one piece that I kind of recently discovered of his was his octet, which is also an amazing. Yeah, this is an incredible piece. I just discovered it last year for the first time, and I thought, how can I be 40 years old and only just now hearing this piece? But
it's so complicated. If you ask me, I haven't actually played it, but our viola player, she has played it many times. And if you would ask her,
okay,
it's really, really complicated. I mean, everything he writes is very complicated.
No, yeah.
But that's absolutely beautiful.
No, very, very true. So just to speak shortly, you both have concert careers next to your chamber music careers and family life and all of these things, and traveling in Europe, in Asia, everywhere. How do you find the balance, especially you? Like, I saw your schedule, and in this month alone, you're playing Tchaikovsky Concerto, Prokofiev Concerto No. 2, and then the Goodbye to Lena Concerto, and on top of that, doing a United States tour with the quartet. And how do you organize your brain? How do you organize how you practice? How do you prepare all of those things when you have such a vast repertoire and you're performing it at the highest levels?
Well, I like the challenge of having a lot of repertoire. It never gets boring that way, and you always challenge yourself to a little bit more. And during I've been playing more than 30 years now, you kind of slowly start to notice what are your borders, what you can do, what you cannot do. And many of those pieces, of course, you've played throughout the time. So it's just a matter of keeping it back in mind, or keeping your technique as working. If I have new pieces to learn, of course, I organize myself in the way that I know then, and then I can practice, then I cannot, so I have to prepare this a little bit before. It doesn't always work out as I want to, and sometimes it gets stressful, but I cannot organize much anything else, but by now I kind of know how to manage my practice time.
Mm-hmm. And you, how do you, you also are playing concerts and chamber music, and do you have a technique about how you go about
planning.
That? Good planning, okay. No, I can imagine. I can very much imagine.
And a lot of practice.
May I ask, how many hours do you still practice?
It
like a
very
day?
much
It just
depends on the
piece.
schedule and on what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. When we started with the Enescu, then of course next to the rehearsals you have to practice yourself. So I spent probably from 8:30 till 10:30 in the night. So it was whole day.
Okay, so you're more of an evening.
No. I mean 8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning. Okay, a morning person. Okay.
No, I mean the whole day.
Oh, the whole day.
14 hours.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I wish it was just 2 hours.
Okay. No, I think a lot of people underestimate how much dedication and hard work it takes to become the level of pianist that a lot of these performers
Yes, and
play.
somehow after 30 years learning the repertoire, you think at some point you would know most of the pieces, but it never ends.
No, yeah, especially as a pianist, that's very true. Another just kind of random question. Do you remember the first time that you guys played together as a duo? And what piece was it? I'm just curious. Like, do you kind of remember that?
I don't think it's possible to remember, because when we started performing, we were, Lauma was 2 years old, but the first time we had concert while singing, of course, not playing instruments. But so it gradually became that in our concerts where we're singing and then taking more and more on instruments and more pieces for the violin and piano, or we were 6, 7 years old maybe, so I would never remember. We even played on piano, 4 hands, that I remember sometimes.
That's true, yeah, we did that
maybe
also.
Even before we played violin and piano, because my mom was playing with me the piano, so maybe that was even before the violin.
I can't remember.
Oh, you can remember, okay.
I was 2 years old.
Oh, okay, well, you never know.
I have a good excuse.
Okay, great. correct me if I'm wrong, are you going to play tonight on the Fritz Kreisler Guarneri then?
Well, yes. I mean, it's an incredible thing that can happen to a violinist. You come to a place and somebody offers you, would you like to play one of the greatest instruments in the world? But of course you have to check first if it's actually doable.
Yeah.
I had only 1 hour and a half on this instrument until now, and usually you need a couple of weeks at least to, but this instrument is so amazing, and I just want to use the chance.
No,
to
of course, we're so
play
glad
it.
that you asked
I'm
to
so
play on it.
thankful that they're trusting me enough to give it into my hands. I mean, it's such a responsibility, and you always feel a bit strange. But I do have a Stradavarius, not on my own, but I'm playing one since a long time, and it's my third one. So I'm used to be around good instruments, but this one is still something
Something
else.
special.
Yeah.
Now, the instrument you've been playing on, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's a Strad from 1734, and it's on loan from Gideon Kramer. Is that the Strad you're playing on still?
It's changed actually.
Oh, it's changed. Okay.
Since 3 years ago.
Oh, okay,
So this is
okay.
my 4th Strad I'm playing.
Okay.
This is actually the top of the instrument is also 34.
Okay.
Funnily enough, but it's a composite Strad. The down part is, I don't know how to call the body.
Mhm.
It's from 20s or maybe even earlier. It's on loan from the Beers.
From the Beers.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So,
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And if you were to compare these various Strads, have there been certain instruments that have been more difficult to play than others, or when you're trying to get acquainted with it and with its idiosyncrasies, the things that make it different than any other, is that which of those instruments really did you feel most at ease with?
Well, it's a process. It's always a process. And from what I've heard from almost everyone I've spoken to who is playing Strad, the first one is always the most difficult, because there is a certain way of playing a Strad, or a certain way you have to adapt or accept that the instrument actually makes you do different things. And for the first one, which I just got after the competition in Brussels in 2001, it took me about 2 years to really feel comfortable with it. I mean, it was a beautiful instrument, but it was difficult for me to play. Afterwards, then the next ones became easier and easier, and I'm happy and lucky that these instruments, I usually changed about, necessarily, not because I wanted to, because I had to, every 4 to 5 years. And somehow it happened that that instrument I had exactly at that time was good for the phase of how I was playing. So I've always been very lucky. But Strads are very, very different from Del Jesus. I mean, the sound is a completely different, and Del Jesus are usually easy to play. They make you everything work. Yeah. It's incredible. For some reason, for most people, it's easier to play a Del Jesus than a Strad.
Great, wonderful. Great. Well, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions to the audience, if you have any questions for our guests today.
Nobody dares.
If you could just wait for the mic.
Just a clarification, they were talking about a commission, but I did not understand who the composer was. I couldn't hear it properly.
Oh, we had in Australia. We had a commission from an Australian composer, Graham Köhne. But the one we're looking forward to is the viola player from also Australian, from Berlin Phil. He's a wonderful composer, Brett Dean. He's becoming really well known nowadays. He's written, I think he's writing his second opera already now, and he's a wonderful, wonderful composer.
Any other questions? Yes, if you could wait for the mic.
Would you elaborate on the violin that we played tonight, its history, something about it?
Well, the violin that she's playing on tonight is a Guarneri, and it's called the Kreisler because it belonged to Fritz Kreisler. And back in the 50s, in 1956 is actually when he gave it to the library. And it's just sort of interesting. Fritz Kreisler actually gave many, many things to the library because back then a lot of composers and artists, they would get a tax write-off for it. So the reason why Fritz Kreisler gave this amazing instrument was because he had this huge tax bill that he had to get rid of. So that's actually the reason why we own it. So and this instrument is actually quite popular and well known among violin soloists. A lot of people, when they come through, like either here or if they're playing with the National Symphony, they'll ask, "Oh, can we come and play and practice on like the Kreisler?" Just because it's such a kind of a unique instrument. And so that's kind of the story. I don't know the whole history of the instrument before Fritz Kreisler had it, but that's how we acquired the instrument. Would you mind, since you've played on it, what to you makes this instrument so special, or what is it about it?
It's a little bit too early for me to say.
Too early.
It's been a couple of hours.
It's only been a couple of hours,
but,
that's true.
I mean, it has this, I say typical, but not all Guarneri del Jesus are like that, but this incredible deep tone, especially in the lower strings. It's like this car which has a huge motor and it just takes you in like that. It's incredible, and it's not as brilliant as Strads. Strads are a little bit maybe lighter sounding, but it has this force in it. It's that I can say already.
Yeah. Yes. Can you wait for the mic, please?
We know about the time demands of preparing for performance that you've just described. Do you have any particular interests or hobbies that you can find time for, and would you like to tell us about them?
I love cooking.
Well, I have 2 kids at home, so my hobbies are kind of bringing them to lessons and football or whatever there is when I'm home. But on the road, I'm just watching some TV series. I mean, I'm a Netflix watcher. It's very dangerous, but no. If I can find the time, but it really needs some planning. I go scuba diving, but it's only possible when you have really time to go somewhere nice, and then you take at least a couple of weeks off. So it doesn't happen that often, but that's my only other thing I do.
Any other questions? So I pulled something out from the library today, and I already showed it to Baiba and Lauma. This was actually new to me. Aaron Copland actually wrote a piano quartet, and he wrote it for Elizabeth Sprague Coolidge. And I have a facsimile of the manuscript that I can leave here, and if anyone would like to sort of take a look at it, you're more than welcome to take a look at it. But he writes to Elizabeth Sprague Coolidge, Quartet for Piano and Strings, 1950, Aaron Copland. And so I just wanted to just sort of end our session just by saying I'm glad that you guys are here with the Skride Quartet. I hope you guys can come and play this Copland Quartet maybe one day in the future.
That's a great idea.
And yeah, you know, like that has been that's been dedicated to our founding patron, and if anyone in the audience would like to look at it, you're more than welcome. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you very
having
much.
us here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.